So it's Lon Welsh at Your Castle Real Estate, and sometimes I'm asked, how do I buy commercial real estate? So the first step in the journey for that is deciding what asset class within commercial is of interest to you. You don't want to just kind of lump everything in commercial all together, because there's a couple different segments and they're really different and they've got different pros and cons. So let's talk about that briefly. The first is you could buy multifamily. And what's nice about that is usually requires a lower down payment. In some cases, maybe as low as 20%, although 25% would be common. It's relatively easy to get a non-recourse loan. So if something goes wrong, you're not personally guaranteeing the loan. The other nice thing about multifamily is it tends to be the most stable throughout the entire economic cycle. The negative about multifamily is that it has the lowest returns on average over the whole market cycle, and it's extremely competitive right now, at least in the Denver market, to find an apartment building to purchase. The next class within commercial you might think about is office. Office historically has slightly higher returns than multifamily, and it's actually a lot easier to run an office building than it is to run a multifamily. I've owned both. I've owned commercial properties for about 20 years, and office is way, way, way easier to run. The downsides for office are that it really requires a higher down payment. Normally it'd be 30%, but right now, because offices are not as in favor, it might be 35% down, and you'll pretty much always have to guarantee the loan, which is something that you may not have to do on the multifamily side. However, if you're really interested in office, I think this is a fantastic time to be looking at it, because it's an asset class that's out of favor. So people are more interested in selling. There's not as many buyers, so there's more room for you to negotiate and get a really good price, as opposed to apartments are the exact opposite. There's too many buyers, not enough sellers, so you have no negotiation power whatsoever. The next asset class would be warehouse, and this is sort of the dream for a lot of people, because warehouses are very easy to run. So you might have to put 30, maybe 35% down, and when you have a vacancy, it's very unlikely there's going to be a lot of tenant finish, that you'll have to customize the space to the exact requirements of the tenant. That's also something that's true about apartments. You'd kind of just have an apartment, and it's take it or leave it, tenant, do you want it? Office, one disadvantage I failed to mention is that almost every time you lease out an office, they want walls moved, they want to have sinks put in, and you have to customize it a bit, but once they've moved in, they stay for a while. Other things about warehouse that are nice is that the tenants tend to stay for a really long time, so you don't have to do lease renewals very often. And it's also very common to have what's called a triple net lease. And what that means is that the tenant is responsible for building maintenance, shoveling the snow, roof repairs, and things like that. And they're also usually required to pay for all those things. So you just get a net rent check that doesn't really change any over time. You probably just have a 2 or 3% rent increase negotiated into it every year or so. So there's some really nice pros and cons about warehouses, but they're attractive. Like multifamily, they're a little bit challenging to find right now. The last asset class that usually is mentioned within commercial is retail. And right now, retail is extremely out of favor because of COVID. I personally think that if you're new to commercial, that would probably be the least desirable, because it's the most complex to run, because it's out of favor with the lenders. It requires the largest down payments. But if you have some expertise and you know a little bit about retail, my gosh, this would be a great time to be a buyer. So you could really score some discounts. So those are the different asset classes. Figure out which one you want to need. Talk to a commercial lender. If you need help, email me or text me, and I'll match you up with some commercial lenders. Figure out your down payment requirements, and then based on that, you can figure out what size of commercial investment would be appropriate for you, and then you could work with someone on the commercial side to help find a property like that.